Jimmy Lai is a man whose money has gotten him into a great deal of trouble. He is self-made, enormously wealthy, which has given him a platform to say things that put him in incredible danger.
China is determined to take away our freedom. We just have to fight. We can't allow that.
The Chinese Communist Party calls him a traitor, a lapdog to the West. His supporters see him as a living legend, maybe the most famous person in Hong Kong. But he's now on trial, and he may spend the rest of his life behind bars. Who is he? Jimmy Lai's belief in freedom, democracy, the power of the everyman is rooted in his own story. When he was 12, he smuggled himself from mainland China to Hong Kong in a fishing boat.
I was put in the bottom of the fishing trunk together with like maybe 100, maybe 80, I don't remember. And everybody vomiting because,
He went from that fishing boat to the factory floor of a Hong Kong sweatshop. He worked, saved, even started his own clothing company. And by his early 30s, he had built a fashion empire.
You could walk around the whole city of Hong Kong, and there would be multiple Giordano's in the same street corner. He didn't just build a Hong Kong company, he built a multinational corporation.
And he was quick to point out all of this, everything he built, he owed to Hong Kong.
I come here with $1. I got everything I have because of this place.
But importantly, he says, it would not have been possible if he had stayed in mainland China. Now stop to think about how insulting and perhaps dangerous a point of view that would have been to the Chinese Communist Party.
The freedom is not just, the freedom to do business, the freedom to speech, the freedom to protest. And I think it's overall that kind of environment of freedom that made him successful and made him, who he is.
At the time, Lai says he really believed all of China could have access to those same freedoms. He was excited about the future, not all that into politics, until 1989.
The military, moving in armored vehicles, smashed through barricades that had been put up by the protesters and advanced relentlessly toward Tiananmen Square.
He saw what happened in the mainland, the brutal crackdown on people who just wanted, democracy, freedom. To him, that was a moment to see the true face of the Chinese Communist Party.
After the June 4th massacre, I went into the media business thinking that information is freedom.
In the early 90s, Lai sold his stake in Giordano and built a media empire. Apple Daily started as a kind of brash tabloid. It had a reputation for eye-catching headlines and celebrity exposés, but it also had this kind of rebellious pro-democracy undercurrent.
That was the ethos of Apple Daily, was that there's a sense of irreverence and a dose of humor that was really, I think, both provocative but poignant in the sense that it poked and drew blood from a regime that was so not used to and so cannot tolerate any kind of dissent and criticism.
And over time, it became more and more critical of the Chinese Communist Party, often calling on its readers to join Hong Kong's pro-democracy protests.
I have a copy of today's Apple Daily, and it translated to English. It says, "Stand up, don't be a slave," but to play on words to the Chinese national anthem. What are you trying to say with this headline?
Well, just saying, it's very plain. We don't want to be slaves.
But Lai also took his message abroad. He urged other countries to stand up to China. In 2019, as hundreds of thousands of protesters flooded the streets of Hong Kong, Lai traveled to the US to meet a series of high-ranking government officials. He praised Donald Trump for his tough-on-China stance and wrote in the Wall Street Journal that Xi is arguably the most absolute dictator in human history.
I was with Jimmy during his last trip to the US Capitol. I think the fear that Beijing had of us actually traveling around the world and actually passing legislation that would counter and push back on Beijing's repression in Hong Kong. And that, I think, was very threatening to Beijing.
Lai would become a frequent target of Chinese state media, who painted him as a puppet, a traitor, and a lapdog to the West. Lai has been arrested 5 separate times for participating in unauthorized protests. His house was apparently firebombed, and he says he was under constant surveillance, but entirely undeterred.
You can almost always expect that if there was a rally or a vigil or a march somewhere in Hong Kong before 2019, that Jimmy would be somewhere walking among the crowds.
He's a British citizen, has a British passport, could have left. He determined freely and with full awareness to stay and fight for freedom.
I don't think I've ever known of a billionaire more beloved by ordinary citizens on the streets.
China's national parliament has approved a controversial national security law for Hong Kong.
It's meant to crack down on any opposition to the government.
For a lot of people in Hong Kong, this is considered a pretty dark day.
In 2020, China passed a sweeping new law, giving it unprecedented control over Hong Kong law, surveillance, and punishment for anyone seen to be challenging its authority. Jimmy Lai was singled out by Chinese state media for stoking what it saw as extremism. Support from such prominent figures is emboldening some radical anti-Beijing elements to go to even more extreme lengths.
And in some way, I would even argue today that the law was really written specifically for someone like Jimmy.
And Lai knew this, even as he spoke directly to CBC.
Is everything you're saying here, sir, actually a violation of this new security law?
Yes.
And that doesn't worry you?
No.
Is there not a chance that you could be spirited away in the middle of the night to a prison in mainland China?
Yes. But what can I do? Just keep quiet?
Just 1 week after that interview,
on August 10th, 2020, police made the media mogul watch as they raided the offices of his newspaper, Apple Daily.
Lai was one of the first, and certainly most high-profile people, to be charged under this new law.
Out of all people in Hong Kong involved in the pro-democracy movement, why do you think you were targeted?
Because I have the media. Because I've been supporting the parties with my money. Because I'm very vocal.
This brings us to today.
The long-awaited trial of Jimmy Lai's
former media tycoon and pro-democracy campaigner
opened in Hong Kong on Monday amid tight security.
The charges against Lai are considerable. They amount to treason, and they could lead to life in prison. The US, the UK, the EU, and Canada are all calling for Lai's release, something Beijing describes as political interference, calling him a notorious anti-China element. Lai pleaded not guilty, but that may not matter. According to Hong Kong's chief security officer, this new law so far has a 100% conviction rate.